Hello again, everybody. I'm back with the secret mission which we unlocked last time, the first of the 4 so-called lab maps. This mission is marked 3 stars, as you can see, harder than the previous missions. However, it's quite easy except for the one gimmick of Fog of War. Well, we found a map in a neutral city, not even a black hole city, which you didn't bother to defend. What was it doing there? Flack, to his credit, does the right thing here. In any case, all the lab missions are basically puzzle missions of one sort or another. And this one also serves to introduce us to Fog of War. All the lab missions have a time limit to them too. I enjoy puzzle missions, so I appreciate what they tried to do here, but I think the execution this particular time was not that great. Yes, now despite the fog we can see the building, so everything is grayed out. We can see the terrain, but we can't see what units are in it. If you've played basically any other strategy game with something like Fog of War, it should seem fairly familiar in general. You know, Sammy did one battle near the very start of the game, a very easy one, and has been excusing herself ever since. That's a function of the order I chose to do the missions in, of course. I think you're probably meant to do this one right before finishing the Orange Star campaign. But of course it's optimal to do it as fast as you can to unlock the new unit type. After all, it's not like anything else ever carries over from mission to mission. So, Fog of War is, if you ask me, a lot of fun in multiplayer, where it adds a whole new dimension of strategy to the game. But it's not much fun at all in single player. Unfortunately, it just leads to guess and check gameplay. When you have a time limit like this, there is no safe way to scout. So you have very little choice but to advance, run into trouble, and then restart the mission with your newfound knowledge and then win easily. Not much fun. The lit up areas around our own troops are what we can actually see. You can also see anything standing on your own properties. Beyond that, enemies could be hidden anywhere. That high vision range is pretty much the only good feature about Recons. We haven't seen much of them so far, but they're just trash tier units for most purposes. You can use them to rush and harass infantry sometimes, but only in Fog of War they'll just easily counter with a tank. I might add that spending 4,000 gold to maybe kill one 1,000 gold infantry and maybe stop one capture is not necessarily a good trade. It can be. They can be good harassers sometimes, but I'd call it somewhat situational. The vision is the main draw, and that only applies in Fog of War. What it is like playing hide and seek with Superman. The enemy cheats, they see everything. The one rule they do abide by is that you can hide from them in woods. Let me talk about one important aspect of things. I know for a fact there's an anti-air unit right here. But I can't drive an MD tank up there and tell it to attack. I would just have to waste my turn spotting it and then it can move away or do whatever it wanted. A Recon, of course, could reveal the thing so I could actually shoot it. The enemy ignores that rule, by the way. But since I've played this map before, I know where everything is as well as they do. I can just shut out all their melee units if I just run up here and block off this narrow spot. As you can see, they have less than 10 units, and therefore that one kill gave me a perfect power score. It's a pretty easy mission except for that one gimmick, as I said. I can just guard my HQ like this and have most of my troops move on toward the lab. Now if I take Nell's advice, I'll lose this infantry, because the AI cheats. Even though their anti-air doesn't have vision of him, it will drive straight up and attack him. They don't even pretend to scout. I do want to demonstrate the infantry vision range boost though, it is a cool idea. So I think instead I'll move the infantry elsewhere and climb them onto a safer mountain that the anti-air can't target. So, next up in Scry vs. Scry, my clairvoyance tells me they have a rocket in those woods. He can shoot anyone trying to capture the lab, so I must take him out. I also know that they have an infantry who will try to block my path across the narrow bridge, possibly trapping me in rocket range if I get too aggressive. So I'm going to anticipate that move. I think the most efficient approach is to have indirects blast the infantry off the bridge. Then I'll have the APC kill 2 birds with one stone by simultaneously scouting the rocket and dropping off the mech. In the same turn, the tank can start blasting the rocket, and next turn, the tank can finish the rocket and the mech can start capturing. There's that anti-air I mentioned before. They really have no powerful melee units on this mission. Once you know that and know where everything is, it's pretty trivial. One of the most wonderful things about Days of Ruin, the last Advance Wars game, sadly, is that they finally made the AI actually abide by Fog of War. So Fog of War chapters in that game were fantastic, the best in the series by far. Just as I predicted, he walked up and shot my APC, so now he's a sitting duck. With my knowledge of the map and a clever plan to put it into effect, the mission is in the bag. I will say that one nice thing about this mission is that Sammy does show up to tell you some important things about where enemies may be hiding. Normally, you don't get that kind of help, of course. There's an artillery specifically in the top right wood there. Even with Sammy's tip though, you're still basically just doing guess and check. Because you don't know whether it's a rocket or an artillery or which wood it's in, so there is no safe spot to scout one of those woods that isn't necessarily covered by the others. Side note about the famous phrase Fog of War, by the way. Video games seem to treat this idea as a literal fog or darkness or something like that. On one Advance Wars mission, I remember somebody saying, quote, "I can't see in this gunk," but Fog of War is supposed to be a metaphor. You can see here, by the way, how that infantry's vision went from 2 to 5 by standing on that mountain. Not much coming our way, as you can see. I'll move to keep the few enemies blocked, more or less. If I'm lucky, this rock is 95%, we'll get plus 5% from luck and will instant kill the infantry, clearing the path. It's basically a coin flip. Well, it didn't go my way, but that's fine, I've got the artillery now. After the artillery clears this guy out, I'll be able to drive my APC through. Specifically, I need to put him next to the wood that the rocket is in, and then I need to drop the mech where he's within movement range of the lab to capture. The lab works like an HQ, by the way. If I capture it, I win. Rockets have a minimum range of 2, so I'm safe here. And with my scouting done, the tank can drive up and start taking out the rocket and finish it next turn. So back to Fog of War. As far as I know, the phrase actually comes from Clausewitz, who's a very famous military strategist. He wrote an excellent book called On War, one of the most important in that genre, and I think better than the other ones that I've read at least. I think he'd disapprove of my mindlessly attacking these guys just because I feel like it. Let me digress one more time to Recons, by the way. They nominally have great movement, 8. But in reality, their movement is actually terrible on most maps. They have the worst movement type, tires. So they only get good speed on roads, beaches, and cities. They actually get slowed to a terrible 4 speed on plains, the very most common terrain type, and they can barely move at all in forests. So they're actually one of the slowest units in the game on many maps, because plains are everywhere. In fact, there are many circumstances under which their supposed natural prey, infantry, can just walk away from them. And I think I mentioned that they cost 4 times as much as infantry. They're really just not that good at their scouting and harassing job. It does work sometimes, but they're really disappointingly bad at it all in all. And I might add that the all-around great unit, the tank, has pretty good vision too, 3. And a tank obliterates a recon, taking almost no damage in return. So if you open with a recon, and your opponent opens with a tank, you've often just thrown away 4,000 gold right there. I find them more valuable later on when they're just kind of spotting for your artillery or things like that. Of course, the ever-useful and cheap infantry and mechs on mountains can see just as far. So against the AI, you'll basically never see me use a recon unless they gave me one. Oh really, Sammy? Could it be the one that we've already been shooting at by chance? Well, to go back up the chain of digressions, Fog of War. So in Clausewitz, it was a metaphor. He made some really good points about how many things are uncertain in warfare, even the position of your own allies. But video games like this one seem to take it as a literal fog. Oh, a tip by the way. The status menu is great in Fog of War. You can use it to see if all enemies are accounted for. They had 9, we killed 4, we can see 3. Sammy told us they have an indirect up there in the northern woods. I'll just block their recon in so it can't bother my mech. And the last unit they have is on that reef, a ship called the Lander. So that's everything accounted for. Using the status menu like that can be very helpful on Fog of War maps more complicated than this one. The one thing that can foil it is if they've joined units, it won't show that in any way. Alright, let's capture that thing. So I realize that I've been pretty negative about this particular chapter. Let me stop talking about problems and start talking about solutions. So first of all, I will concede that it is hard to make an AI play by imperfect knowledge. They did manage to make it work with woods, which is nice. And in Days of Ruin, they got it working fully. Days of Ruin also added something else very important, a way to scout without exposing your units to risk. Now, not everyone might like the particular way they did that. I do like it. But the important thing is that they rewarded rather than punished scouting, so nice improvement, intelligent systems. This line makes a lot more sense if you're doing this mission as the second to last, because the next mission is the factory. In general, there are certain orderings of chapters that make the dialogue make more sense than others do. Doesn't matter though. And we stopped seeing that after the Orange Star campaign, by and large. She says Neotanks of her own, but we haven't actually seen Neotanks by this point, so no one else would really know what she's talking about. That's not just a matter of order either. I think the enemy basically can't deploy Neotanks before this point. I tried just sitting around for dozens of turns on the other 2 missions just to see, and the enemy never built Neotanks there. Sammy really is very helpful in your first run through. It was a good thing to add to this mission. I give them credit for that. All of their labs have those satellite dishes on them. I wonder if they're supposed to be receiving signals from their home world or something like that about the new weapon designs. No idea. It does seem a little strange to me. Had the characters all start talking about Neotanks without having any way to know what they are. For my playstyle, they're fantastic units. You'll be seeing them soon. And you know what? You'll be seeing Recon units very soon too. There is actually one mission where they really shine. Till then, have a great day everyone.